One of the other things that happened was this man brought in this box, and he put it on this ledge that was next to the x-ray table, and he was peeling off these white circles, and they were putting them on my chest. And as I was watching all that from above, I stopped saying to the being that I wanted to go back, and for a moment I watched, and then I said, "What is that he's doing?" And I was moved from the ceiling right in front of the box. I watched as the man's hand went between where my consciousness was and the box, and he flipped a toggle switch, and this little light lit up in that screen, and it started going across the screen in a straight line. I watched it go all the way across the screen, and all of a sudden it came to me what it was, and I said, "Oh, it's a heart monitor, that's my flatline." And the second that I thought that, I was immediately back up on the ceiling again next to the being, and I felt him next to me again, and I realized that I had asked that question and he had put me down there to answer it for me. And the neurosurgeon who was over with the orthopedic surgeon said, "Too much time has passed. She's going to be brain dead. We need to do something." And so then the orthopedic surgeon said, "Stand clear." So the two x-ray techs that were doing the CPR, they stepped back away from the table, and the orthopedic surgeon took 2 steps forward, took his fist from behind his back, arced it over his head, and pounded it into my chest. And I watched my body when that happened. I watched the whole thing from above, and my body kind of went like this and kind of jerked from the hitting of me, and I didn't go back into my body. But up on the ceiling, as I was looking down, the being finally spoke to me, and in this beautiful voice that was just so amazing, said, "But if you go back, you'll still be in your marriage. What will you do?" And then I saw all these little film clips that just went flash, 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 and they were all incidents that had been happening in the years that I'd been married to this person that I was married to, and it was all of the abuse that I had been enduring. And after each event that he would hurt me, then he would apologize. He would try to bribe me with taking me out to dinner or bringing me flowers or something, and he would always say that it was not going to happen again, but of course they would happen again. And so I was reminded of all the incidents with all these little flashes. And then I was given time to think about all the things that I had done to try to help him change. And I thought about this, 8-page letter I had written about stating that I couldn't take any more of the abuse, and that if he continued to do this, that I would leave him. And, the marriage family therapist and the pastor of the church, and the times when I, told him, "I'm not doing this. This is not going to be who I am." I saw it all, and I realized after I watched it all, it wasn't him that needed to change, it was me. I needed to stop trying to change him. I needed to get away. So I said, "If you let me go back, I promise you, I'll get strong enough to leave him." And the second I said the word him, the doctor did the second precardial thump, and it restarted my heart. And I opened my eyes, and I was back in my body with the oxygen mask on my face. They were all astonished that I opened my eyes. And I looked at him and I said, "What just happened?" And the nurse leaned over me and said, "Stop, don't talk, we need to stabilize you." And so for 20 minutes, they did whatever they had to do to stabilize me. And then they took the oxygen mask off, and I said to all of them were looking at me, and I said, "What just happened?" I was up on the ceiling and I could see and hear everything. And the neurosurgeon who was standing next to the table I was laying on, he went, "Oh, brother." And that made me completely recount what had just happened. So I said, no, I'm telling the truth. She was calling on the phone for the defib unit, and that lady brought in the oxygen card, and that man brought in the heart monitor. I watched my flatline, and these two guys were doing CPR. And then when she brought in the oxygen card, they just switched to every 2 minutes, switching off the chest compressions. And you said to him too much time had passed that I was going to be brain dead, and then he did 2 strikes to my chest, and then I came back. Well, that just freaked the neurosurgeon out completely. As I was talking, he clenched his fist like this, pulled him up next to his body, and then he went, "I am not going to stand here and listen to this." And he stormed out of the room, which was really good, because then the orthopedic surgeon took my hand and with everybody else listening said, "Tell me again, what did you see? How did it feel? What was it like?" He was interested in it, and he understood what had just happened. So then they put me on a gurney. They put me up in my room. They were going to do the surgery the next day. Anybody who came into my room, I would say, "What was that happened when I was having my myelogram?" And everybody would look at their chart and go, I'm sorry, I don't see anything. I don't know what you're talking about." So the next day when they took me down to surgery, they did do the surgery on my back. It was a laminectomy, discectomy on my L5-S1 vertebrae. The doctors came out after the surgery, and they started walking towards me in the recovery area, and I immediately said, "What happened last night during the myelogram?" And the neurosurgeon went, "I am not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about your surgery." And so for 4 days I was in the hospital. No one would talk to me about it. I had no idea it was called a near-death experience. I'd never heard of anything about that. I'd never meditated. I wasn't, in that way of looking at my life. When my then husband came in that afternoon after the surgery, I told him what happened. And he said, "Oh, that couldn't have happened. You probably hallucinated that." Well, I never did drugs because my mom was a police officer. I didn't drink. I still don't. I never did anything. I was a clean kid. And I've never had hallucinations. And that would be very weird. And I knew that wasn't the truth. And so I just zipped my lips and didn't talk about it. I didn't know who to talk to that would believe me. It was as real every time I thought about it as if it was just happening. Like when I talk about it right now, if I were to shut my eyes, I would see down where the table is, where the people were. I can see the whole room. But there wasn't anybody to talk to. And so I kept it inside me for about 12 years. And I went on with my life. I got away from the husband. It took me a while to get away because he had really highly insured me, and I was afraid he was going to kill me. So I waited until it was the right time. He was on a business trip to go to Canada, and I realized that for a week he wouldn't have access to me. And I got a restraining order against him and let the police department know that I was in a dangerous situation, and that was what helped. I got through a divorce and moved on. How I look at it is that my near-death experience was planted in my life to get me out of that situation and to help me grow beyond it. I spent 2 years working and supporting my children, and I thought, I'm not sure I ever want anybody else in my life. I'm scared. I don't know if there's any nice people out there, nice guys. So what I started was a little book next to my bed that I would look at night, and I would write character traits, positives only, that I would want if I ever let anybody else into my life, if I ever trusted anybody again. And every night when I would look at that book and read through the character traits, I would say, God, I don't know who this person is, but I know that you do. One day, my son, who was in 8th grade, brought home a girl from the neighborhood, and they wanted me to go to a movie. They ended up asking me to come over to her house to pick them up. So I went over, and the door opened when I knocked on it, and it was a 7-foot tall guy. And I said, hi, I'm here to take your daughter and my son to the movie. And he said, well, that's weird because they asked me to take them to the movie. And I immediately knew what they were doing was putting their two parents together. And I was very embarrassed. And we went to the movie and we went to dinner afterwards with the kids. And I got a chance, since we had both had 2 children each, we got a chance to go out and do fun things with our kids. And after about 4 months, I realized that I'd been writing all those character traits about him. And at 6 months after our meeting, we got married. And now it's been 30 years, and he is still the person I wrote about.